Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and my very special guest, Tom Fenyoe. I'm going to read what Tom is, System VP, Talent Acquisition and Executive Recruitment for CommonSpirit, right? Am I right? Okay,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
We never talked about the company, but it was Dignity, CommonSpirit, but you're at the CommonSpirit. Tom and I used to work at Sutter Health together, and actually in the same building on the same floor and not in the same compartment. And so that's where you and I first met. And I have an extreme amount of respect for you and who you are as a leader. And it's evidenced by some of the stuff that you shared before we hit record today. So I encourage you to share that with other people as well. So the quote we're going to kick off is one that Tom picked, and I'll read it. And then he has another one to weave in as well. So it's about characterizing people by actions, and you will never be fooled by their words. And for me, this goes back to when I think about me coaching leaders or me coaching myself. There was a phrase that Sutter Health used, which was around walk the talk, right? And that's what this is. It's like, okay, we can give lip service to something. It got done. We're okay. Yeah, I believe in that. Yeah, whatever it may be. But if what we're doing day in and day out doesn't align to that and support those words, then yeah, you need to look at what I'm doing and call me on it. But that's what that means for me is if the words are just hollow, then there's just nothing there. And I think that's where the true level is are you walking the talk? Are you following through with what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it, and owning up if it doesn't go so well?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
welcome to the conversation, Tom. What's on your
Thank you,
mind?
Michelle. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And it's great, as usual, to converse with you. I have so much respect for you and for what you do. And I think what's on my mind, in this current day and age in the workplace, the challenges that we are confronted by, the changing world, I think, leadership and our people are more important than ever before. And so I think about things from my military career, things I've learned and mistakes I've made, things I learned from my people, my most junior employees, my most junior airmen when I was in the Air Force, and learn from that to be a better person, a better leader, and how I can impact my little section of the world. And so I think nowadays it's a quote that I remember from one of my mentors, and he was the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. His name's Robert Gaylor. And he is probably one of the most, from time as a young troop to the time I retired as a Chief Master Sergeant, he was always somebody that I just admired and respected, because he was the type that he led by example. And he always would tell us, your name's on the mailbox. And he would reflect on what that meant. And he grew up, he was in the service during Korea and Vietnam, different generation. Yeah. And he would just talk a lot about, even at his home, everything that people saw of him and the family were reflected upon the front yard, the way he carried himself. Your name's on the mailbox. That's your reputation. And so he would always let us know that think that way. Your word is your bond. Your actions speak volumes for who you are, and trust in and reinforce the core values that the Air Force teaches you. And it's the same thing here at CommonSpirit. We have very strong value system, which I believe in. And I think it's very important to guide us in everything we do.
It's interesting when you take me back. So we were talking offline. My dad was in the Air Force too. He retired after 23 and a half years. And he wouldn't have left, but he ended up having a bypass surgery done, when he was freaking in his 40s. But you take me back to, we were in Japan for 4 years. And it was the only time we lived on base housing. So when you're on base housing, your name's on the mailbox, you can have inspections. So literally everything had to be just so. And when you left a room, the lights had to go off. And, so I got programmed, right, all this stuff because they monitor different things growing up. So I can relate to all that stuff that you were just talking about. Is people know where you live. They know where to find you. Do the right thing. every single time. It's not like you're going to go underground. And I wonder how it is in today's day and age that that message gets passed on to people, gets reinforced, right? That where it's like, and this isn't about Big Brother looking over your shoulder. This is about doing the right thing all the time. But as a young person growing up, that stuff's stuck in my head.
And it's important. Those lessons help forge and mold us to who we are, and hopefully how we better society and impact and leave our own legacy. And we have a responsibility to kind of carry that forward and share that wisdom. And it all comes down to accountability, really.
Mhm.
Set expectations, hold people accountable for them. It's really, trust but verify. And in everything you do, whether it's your kids, with your spouse, we have expectations. I expect you to communicate this with me. Anything you do has that trust but verified mentality, because that is your reputation, that's your word, that's your bond. So it's exceptionally
So
important.
how do you, I wonder, because when you and I were talking offline, you've had the same group for what, 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
And share with the audience, what's your turnover rate?
Turnover rate is 0.
Yes,
Um,
which is
we've got
freaking awesome.
well, it's a small dynamic team of amazing individuals that, I think we all feed off each other's energy. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, me included. We're very transparent. And I know people, there's a there's a lot of opinion about that whole work family, that title. I get it. It's not, but half our lives at work. So you have the same obligation to be there for your people, because people don't generally come to work to not be successful. They want to do the
Right.
right thing. They want to do good things. And if you treat your people right, not only will they grow and excel, but they're going to make you look good, and they're going to accomplish the mission, and you're all just be happier for it. It's really basic stuff,
Yep.
but it's
But
not as
it's,
basic as we
well,
say.
it's funny though, we talked about it's basic, right? But is it? I mean, it's not brain surgery stuff, but it
No,
requires leaders to do things differently maybe than they've done in the past. I mean, you've led through, and I mean, here you are with talent acquisition, executive recruiting, and you work remote.
I do.
So one of the challenges with people that are leading in a remote world or hybrid world that we're living in now is, how do you hold people accountable? Right? What does that look like? Trust but verify. What does that look like? So we can get out of these, here's the word. For me, the question is, what are those underlying actions as a leader that I need to take so that I can actually do what you're talking about doing?
No, and I think that you bring up such a good point. Our teammates are all individuals, so we
Mhm.
know pretty quickly. I think you can measure strength and look for and see areas of improvement. Quite often, it's just a basic coaching conversation where they even know, and they're open to just sharing that. Well, and then come to through that conversation, well, what do you suppose we can do differently? Like, how can I help you? And then how
Mhm.
can I monitor you? How can you give you the feedback? And people want to get better. And they can be the silliest little things that make a huge difference, but it's certainly also empowering them. And sometimes almost, well, I don't want to say force, but strongly encouraging them to get out of their comfort zone and make them do things that are a little uncomfortable. Obviously, if
Mhm.
it's something traumatic, we don't do that. But you know, if let them grow and develop, let them find a safe place to fail,
Yep.
and praise them when they succeed, and build upon that. And I think that drives the individuals to be better, and teams to be better, and leaders to be better, because we're really
Well,
all
and
leaders. Everybody on the team should be a leader.
Paul, and what you're talking about too is, right, when I think about when I was, W-2 in the workplace, for me, I wanted to know that I was successful in the job that I was doing, that I was not ever going to get bored, i.e., I still need to be challenged, right, with new stuff. And that there was some visibility to what is, moving up the career ladder. So, what does that look like to go up higher in the organization? Those are basic questions that people need answers to for the most part. I'm not going to presume that everyone feels that way. But when you talk about clarity on the expectation, I think the part that is key. Also, part of the clarity is, which some leaders don't necessarily articulate, is what does it look like to go up to the next level? What does it look like? You talk about performance reviews, if you still do those. What does it look like to be a strong performer versus exceeds expectations versus role model? What does that look like? Can we all agree on what that looks like so it's not a whim? But I think that's all the stuff that motivates people to go, okay, I'm gonna make the personal decision that I want to do this. And so if I want to do this, this is what it's going to take. Did you freeze? I think you froze for a minute. So I'm going to wait till you come back, because where he lives, it sometimes freezes.
There we
There
go.
he
Sorry.
is. He's back again.
Georgia
okay.
Wi-Fi. I apologize.
We froze for a moment. But when I think about that, that's kind of that basic stuff of framework with people, regardless of the team size, right?
Absolutely.
So what changed for you? Have you always been that leader that was really clear and trust and verify and all that stuff? Okay, you're shaking your head.
Clearly not. I don't believe well, maybe there's onesies or twosies out there. I don't think the majority of people are that way. I think when I was a young leader in the military, especially, I was a little micromanager.
Oh,
I was a command and control guy. This is what and that does not serve well, because obviously that some people will comply, but their heart won't be in it. You're not going to get the same results, and you're not going to have that relationship, and people aren't going to learn. They're going to learn they don't want to be around you. And I was very lucky because I got put in leadership roles very early on in my career, and I had leaders that mentors that gave me some grace, and they for the most part, I mean, there's always exceptions, for the most part they were allowing me to diagnose my own issues through a good coaching conversation. And I don't, whatever you want to call it, I guess, if you want to look at diagnose an action plan, that's what it was. But it was a Jedi mind trick. How about if you consider this option? Maybe you should do that. Oh, that's a great idea. Maybe and sure enough, with time, you grow. And realistically, it was more getting feedback from my people. That feedback, because I do care. That's that name on the mailbox thing.
Yep.
I cared about what my people thought. I wanted it to be a good memory. I wanted to leave my own legacy like I had from people that mentored me. Like to this day, I mean, I am very close with those leaders, and we still are in communication consistently. And I look at them as the reason I'm here today is because of them. That's the same kind of feeling, the same kind of memory or legacy I want to leave for people that I've brought up. And so it took time. But certainly I think the military helped me definitely get to who I am today. And I've been very blessed with good leaders since I transitioned almost 11 years ago to the civilian world, that have given me autonomy to be my best self, I guess, if you will. And it's worked well for me so far. So I'm pretty blessed.
Well, and it's a two-way street. So it goes back to the whole thing of, you can't coach someone who doesn't want to be coached, right? That you have to be open to going, you know what? This matters to me. I want to create the best experience possible for the people on my team, for me. And I want to know, back to your point, my name's on the mailbox. What do you want that, hashtag underneath to read? Right? Because you could still have your name on the mailbox and think it's okay if people don't XYZ, don't feel this way about me. But there's some intention that you set for yourself to where the experience of the people on my team matter. Because what I heard is, I'm going to encourage you to go outside your comfort zone, because that's where we learn and grow and develop, right? And I'm going to create the safe space that you can do it. And if you fail, that's okay. We're not talking about, people dying.
Right.
This is how we learn, right? Failure is a gift and an opportunity. But
Absolutely.
that has to come from this development space that you're in, that you yourself believe, not just know, but believe that in fact is true.
100%. No, I think, and I think it's about being honest with ourselves, because we're all human. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and or areas of improvement, whatever is the kinder way to put it. But I'll just say for myself, areas of improvement. And you know, we want to, again, leave that legacy. You want to leave an impact on others. Early on in my, well, later in my career, I should say, I went through something very personal, very traumatic. I was married, I lost my wife unexpectedly, and I learned
I'm
a
sorry.
lot about what my leadership did for, my troops. And I had young troops that, they always did great jobs. I treated them well, but when I had went through that in my life, it was life altering. And there's so
Mm-hmm.
many things happen when you lose a spouse, when you have kids, and all these things. And watching I had two exceptionally young NCOs. I mean, young in age, young in the military, that probably had the best, kindest leadership of these things that I never thought of for my family, myself, others.
Yeah.
There's so many little things. They took the reign, and the things they did for me, like for the rest of my life, like they have a legacy in my mind, and still could, contact with them today. But that's also, everybody has a leadership role to play, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't just think your role doesn't make you a leader. Your behavior makes you a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You might be in a leadership role. That's your expectation to lead and
Yeah.
manage necessarily, but everybody has a leadership opportunity, and you can never underestimate the leadership potential of people at all levels, because
Mm-hmm.
they will step up to the plate and rise to the occasion, and they will also impact you. And so I learned that very early on, and that really has carried a lot of weight with me in terms of ensuring that even when I'm having an off day, I do my very best. I show my people respect as human beings, bottom line. And that that enhances the team and does help us excel in our mission.
Well, and I have to wonder when you're sharing that story, right, as you went through stuff, because what I hear from you is what they did and how they stepped in, them and other people, you weren't expecting.
No,
You weren't expecting. And so when things like that happen in our lives, right, that have that big of an impact on us, the question in my head is like, that feels huge to me, Tom, in all honesty, right? And so I think of you as a leader, if you looked at yourself before that life-changing thing happened to you, and after, as you came out of it, right? What changed in you? Because when we go through stuff like that, typically we're forever changed as far
for
as
sure.
the lens that we see stuff through. What is a notable change for you when you look back on that?
That is such a great question, because it took me a while to figure out I had evolved or changed, because I was very reactive at that point in my life. That's
Yeah.
when you first met me. I had just, I had retired on a Friday in San Antonio, Texas, and started in Sacramento, California the following Friday, my first civilian job. So I had that after 26 years in the military, just losing, a spouse. My son was going through cancer, and all these things were happening, and I did not fully understand. I was being reactive,
Hmm.
and not always, not always positive, but I was reactive. And at at once I had time to decompress, what I realized and what changed with me is and this is where I changed some of my military ways of doing things.
Hmm.
Everything was an emergency. I thought I put my family first always.
Hmm.
I didn't. I definitely put work first.
Yeah.
While work is very important, work won't be there at your deathbed. Your family, if you did it right, will.
Hmm.
And so I learned that there is truly, and I know, and I still battle this with certain leaders. They don't believe
Yeah.
in work. They don't like the term work-life balance. Well,
Hmm.
I hate to tell you, you better have a work-life balance.
Hmm.
And so I learned work-life balance. My family's my number one thing. If I don't conduct myself right, I'm not only bringing discredit upon myself, but my family. And the better I am, the more successful I am, and the more my family benefits. I mean, it's just a better emphasis on more personal thought process behind being the best you can be.
Yeah. So you know what I'm just going to reflect and summarize what
Go
I
ahead.
just heard, right? Because
Yeah,
you think about this is before that happened, right? Or as you were, because you had to process a boatload of stuff.
sure.
But before that happened, if you were, or up to the point that you realized, if you were putting work first, right, which
Mhm.
happens a lot of times for a lot of us, and then family second, then most likely you're imposing that same expectation on people on your team. So your
Yeah,
tolerance for anyone who has it in a different order, i.e., family first, work second, there's no tolerance for that typically,
yeah,
because
typically.
that's your own personal belief and prioritization. So if I hear, now I've gone over and I realize life is precious, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And the reality of it is families first, work a second, or works wherever, right? And my loved ones, let's just say that is first and work
Yeah,
second. As a leader, you show up differently and you
you
have
do.
a different level of tolerance for people on your team who feel the same way.
Absolutely. And it's weird. I think I was a big hypocrite because I did believe I would say your family first to my people, and
Yeah.
I really did have them. How your family? I mean, I really believed in it. I just didn't practice it myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was very much a hypocrite when it came to that mentality until I really started owning it, and because my behaviors weren't showing that I truly believe what I was saying, and so I think that was actually more impactful when it hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm like, wow, here it is now. I reflect 10 years ago, I retired from the military. It seems like yesterday, but it's 10 years, you don't have unlimited 10-year increments in your life.
No.
So it is really, it is exceptionally important. That is what I learned. And and I did believe this in the military. People are our most valuable resource. I know we hear it
Mhm.
all the time, but it truly is a fact.
Mhm.
People can accomplish a ton if you give them if you're a as a you have humility.
Mhm.
You don't know everything. Don't act like you
Mm-mm.
know everything.
Mm-mm.
Engage with them, try things, let them shine, give them credit where credit's due, and you don't
Yep.
discipline them in public. No humility. If someone goes astray, you take the ownership over it as a leader, and you talk to me, coach them behind the
Yep.
scenes. That stuff works miraculously for morale, motivation. That's why you
Yeah.
retain people.
No, I love it. Yeah. Otherwise, you end up throwing people under a bus, and it's like, and then there's no safe, there's no anything.
Yes,
Um, I I love I love this time. I appreciate the time, just the shift in leadership and the pivotal moments that happen and the reflection that you did and looked inside and went, "Oh, Houston, we got a problem."
for sure.
But it happens with leaders on different stuff too, right? And when I think about it, leaders that go, I don't want you working on the weekends. I don't want you working late at night. And yet they're sending emails, at 10 o'clock at night or Sunday night or whatever. And it's like, okay,
So true.
so what are your people? And I'm going to go back to that quote, right? It's like about only, no, characterize people by actions
Well,
and never by their words, right? So it's that, and it's so funny, I didn't think about it at the beginning. It is that. It's
it
like, I'm going
is.
to tell you that family's important, take care of this stuff, yet I'm not doing that. I'm going to tell you, don't work on the weekends, don't work late at night, yet I'm doing that.
I'm doing it.
So what are you telling your people? You're telling them that I expect you to work weekends. I expect you to be at night. And they're like, no, 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 but yes, yes, yes. So
Yes, and what's great about that? Like I have a leader, my leader now, who I've had the last 5 years. Love her to. I think she is absolutely phenomenal because she's got more energy than any five people put together. Like I don't know how she does what she does, but she is so emotionally cued in to ensure she sets the tone because she will do that. Like I know she's working, but she'll put a delay on her emails. So guess what? Things you learn. You don't send because no matter what, somebody will see like even if you say don't respond, they're still gonna
yeah,
respond because they feel
yeah,
tense.
yes. Well,
And
because you're they're one up
their
and you've
boss,
sent
yeah,
a freaking email out and
yeah,
you're like,
for
what are you
sure.
doing when you're responding? They're like, why are you working? You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's tips and tricks to that stuff so that you are aligned. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I have missed chatting with you, sir.
It's
And
great time with you.
I enjoy this time. So here's my final question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What if the final question right now?
Okay.
Um, what's something that stands out for you that you want people to walk away with of all the stuff that we just chatted about?
I think more so now than ever, like with the way the world is, the way I can speak for healthcare because that's what I work in, and it's so exceptionally challenging. Um, there's no more important time than to believe in our people, to be kind to our people. Doesn't mean you let them run amok. I mean, there's still expectations, but you can do
Mm-hmm.
that in a kind way. Um, show your people respect and
Mm-hmm.
admiration, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to get through all these changes, these challenging times, better for it, and ready to tackle the next challenge, which is inevitably coming. So, I think just trust your people, be there for your people,
Mm-hmm.
for your people.
Yeah, the word grace comes to mind.
That's
Give
a great
ourselves
word,
grace and the people on our team grace. Yeah, that's what comes to mind for
exactly,
me.
Michelle. Yep.
Um, I I agree. It's so not funny, haha, but interesting. Just the mode of the day or the thing of the day is just be ready for constant change. And I mean, and I wonder, I think it's been there actually longer than before COVID, the whole idea of constant change. I don't know that that is actually new. I think it's just more talked about now than ever before. And I think the degree of change was more so than maybe what we experienced before. Because I had someone tell me, or I read or something, that literally the energy it takes us to stop changing, because our bodies are, we do complete cell turnover in our bodies in whatever finite period of time. So literally everything's changing all the time, right? So I just think it's the magnitude and the degree of the change. It's probably greater than what it's ever been. And so it's like, how do you ready people for that? So they don't have mental fatigue, that they don't feel like they're a victim of something, that they're actually, tracking with it, and maybe they can anticipate it better. Well, but I think that's part of it too, is how do we keep people tracking with it and understanding from a leader perspective and feel empowered in this time of, oh, here we go again. Yeah, isn't it
Yeah.
great?
Exactly. No, you're right. And how to keep people nimble and emotionally healthy. And I hate using the term resiliency, but I mean resilient. That's resiliency is key, and that's part of building their own resiliency to tackle on future
Yeah.
change.
John Akers' Happiness Advantage. He wrote the book, and then there's a 12-minute video that I share with leaders that I freaking love.
Okay.
Because one of the sayings in that, and I've watched it probably 75 times, is that if I know everything about your external environment, everything, I can only predict 10% of your future happiness. 10%,
That's it. Wow.
because it's a freaking inside job. So
Yeah.
if we can just get mindset right and filter through happy instead of negative, right?
Negative.
Then for me, it's the secret sauce of burnout and developing resilience. Is that it's here.
It sure is. It sure
So,
is.
and it's a shame
It
I have
sure is.
no passion around that at all.
No, clearly not, Michelle.
I've enjoyed this time. And I open invitation, sir, if you ever want to come back and chat about anything. So
Well, I
thank you very
appreciate the
much.
time. I appreciate
Yeah.
the time. I appreciate you. You're always so insightful, and you've got that great energy. So thank you very much for
Well,
inviting me.
anytime, anytime. So this has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and special guest Tom Fenyoe. And until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you.